Welcome to Whistleblowers in partnership with Wix Trade Pro. Right, welcome to Whistleblowers with the original lineup here, the three Ronnies, all in our black NHS specs today. I've spent most of the last 2 days looking at Skyscanner and destinations to hide in should it come home. But this is not an England podcast today. This is about a brilliant World Cup, which just keeps serving up incredible entertainment. And I have to start, Mark, I know you've just been covering a game that's gone to penalties. We'll get into that in a second. But Argentina, Egypt, in terms of World Cup drama, that's up there, isn't it?
I think there's lots of games. I think it just keeps rolling and rolling. We keep saying game after game, this is unbelievable. This is has so much drama, so much excitement. And then another one comes out and something else happens and it's just rolling on. I'm having the best time of my life. And you know what? I've watched that much football. I've probably watched over 60 matches for Fox and I'm not getting bored. I want more. I want more fix. I'm actually, when I get a day off tomorrow, I'm going to be thinking, what do I do? I'm gutted.
Well, you look healthy with it. I'm a little bit worried about Ian Ladyman expiring because I don't know if he's got the necessary levels of adrenaline to cope with the last 2 games you've been to. Ian, have you, in your career, experienced anything back-to-back or as close to this, where you've been served up entertainment and drama and a test of your journalistic ability when it comes to writing?
Oh, that's a really good question. I mean, I was at the 2022 final, which was obviously epic, but obviously, and I was at the semi-finals before, which I don't remember being as epic. So, I can't think of it, Gordon. I mean, I was at the England game in Mexico City, flew home the next day back to Atlanta, went to that game today, midday kickoff, which just feels weird going to a football ground at 9 o'clock in the morning. Just feels weird, but absolutely blown away. And I've been really, really lucky to sit next to Oliver Holt, our chief sports writer for the Mexico game. And he actually put his arm around me at one point and said, "We've done a lot of games, you two, but we need to remember this one." And then today, by complete chance, I was sitting next to Oliver Kay from The Athletic, who's one of my oldest friends in football journalism. Used to work together on the Nottingham Evening Post. I was actually his boss for a while. And Ollie was sitting next to me, and we've just sat through. And, you share it together. You're working, of course you're working, but it's an early kickoff, so deadlines aren't quite as tight as they might be. You can watch it. It was immense. It was absolutely immense. And I don't mind saying that I'm glad it happened. We'll get on to some of the shit that's been thrown around by the Egyptian players and staff in a minute. But I was glad it happened because I wanted Argentina to remain in the World Cup because we've lost Brazil and we've lost Germany and we've lost Holland and we've lost all the host nations now. I want Argentina in this World Cup, even if they end up knocking England out, which is a bit looking ahead there. I want them in the tournament. It was unbelievable what happened in the last 12 minutes. I've seen a lot in football. I really have. And today I've seen something else that absolutely blew me away. That Messi equaliser, my God, it must have gone at 90 miles an hour. And you watch it and it was all from him. The cross was his. And when you watch the replay, he's the one who works out what might happen. Someone heads it at the far post. An Egyptian player then heads it. An Argentinian player then gets his toe on it. And who's in the right place to smash it into the net. That doesn't happen by accident. That's absolute genius. And as you can tell, I was a little bit excited by it all.
There's been a lot of genius on show, hasn't there? We'll probably talk about Erling Haaland at some point as well, because, just suddenly coming to life and creating a bit of magic. But Mark, there's been so much for you to get your teeth into, and that Argentina-Egypt game, penalty calls, missed penalties. There's so much for you with your professional hat on to look at in that game. But the composure at the end of the game from Messi to deliver a cross and play a ball like that when panic station should be kicking in, it must have been brilliant to be in the studio watching that.
It's just incredible when people have had arguments for years and years who's better, Ronaldo or Messi, and then you're just seeing the little fella just becoming even higher, and you're like, is this guy human? Is this guy... Yeah, and he's had his luck. There's been 1 or 2 things that have happened in earlier games which have gone his way, but certainly he stood up. And when you see somebody that talented, and they just know it, it's like any top sports person, don't they? They just know what's going to happen next. And he's one of these, and there's not many players in the world. Haaland's another one, like you've just raised. They just know what's going to happen. and they're just there, and they just finish it. And when you see this talent on show, I'm just so privileged to be able to witness it. And Ian was live in a stadium, making it even better. But to witness it is just, for me...
The good thing about the Atlanta Stadium, part of the fact it's in the middle of Atlanta, which is a rare thing at this World Cup, and that's great as well, was that it's an indoor stadium, but our seats are not behind glass, so for once, so you can actually feel the atmosphere, which we could feel last week when England played Congo there. So that's a real benefit. I think the Ronaldo-Messi comparison is interesting. You know, Ronaldo's here was here as a decoration for this World Cup. Ain't a decoration. I thought he would be. He's 39. He's not a decoration because he's learned how to play at 39.
Yeah, I think you're right. This has settled that debate, hasn't it? Because, you know, there's a lot of controversy about Ronaldo being there in the first place with how he got to the tournament. But actually, if you look at it now, Messi's still in the tournament. I thought he was incredible, as you say, in the game. But Ronaldo, that game last night, Portugal-Spain, you'll be listening to this, it was 2 nights ago, Portugal-Spain. But I thought, oh no, I hope this isn't the bubble bursting in a great World Cup, because it was a dull game. It was pretty, I don't know, it was very tactical. They kind of cancelled each other out. But Ronaldo went out with a whimper, didn't he? And Messi's just coming alive every time you see him. And look at the statistics, lads. I mean, what's that? Ronaldo's 41, 5-time Ballon d'Or winner, 5-time Champions League winner, Euro 2016 champion, 976 goals, 146 goals for his country. But that's still not as good as Messi, is it, Mark?
No, but you made the comparison there. I look at Portugal. Portugal have got some talented players. If you look at their squad, it's incredible. You know, player to player, you're thinking, wow. But it feels like, tactically, like I got annoyed because I thought Ronaldo should have come off and Ramos should have went on, who saved them against Croatia. And yeah, you could say you're saving yourself till extra time. What? Is it because you think it's going to be his last match that Ronaldo stays on? But I feel everything with Portugal was around Ronaldo, where I don't see that with Messi. I see Argentina playing as a team, and Messi is an integral part of that team, where I believe Portugal are pushing and too much and too hard to make Ronaldo the special one, and that doesn't work. It's a team game. And if for example, I think Ronaldo, if I watch that game back, Ronaldo didn't have many touches in the penalty area. He didn't influence anything. Where you see Messi, he's influential all over the pitch. And I find Argentina are working as a team, and Messi's starring in that team, where I think they push too much to Ronaldo, and they even finding balls to Ronaldo, and I got annoyed. You think, why are you playing that ball to Ronaldo? They're putting too much to him to try and perform, where Messi doesn't need to do that.
I think you've just made a really good point, and I say that because it's something that I've actually just pressed the button on to send for a piece that will appear tomorrow about that, Mark, about Argentina's unity. They surprised me. It's the first time I've seen them live this tournament. They surprised me. They are a very, very unified bunch, and I think I know why. Here's a question, and I only know this because I looked it up. How many of the 11 who started against Egypt, how many of those do you think started in the 2022 final?
6, 7?
9.
Yeah, quite a few.
9 of them. I can't believe that. Same coach and 9 of them, okay? And I think there's a lot about that. If you look at England, the last World Cup game they played in 2022 when they got knocked out by France, completely different back four. None of the back four have survived. So I think that's important about Argentina. And I think from that point, I think they're a flawed team. I think there's holes in the team. I mean, you don't come within the skin of your teeth of getting knocked out by Cape Verde and Egypt unless there's something wrong. So I think there are flaws there, but there is a will, and they are an incredibly unified team, and they've got match winners.
I was listening to your old pal Chris Sutton last night. He was absolutely scathing about Roberto Martinez, just saying there's weak leadership, hadn't handled the Ronaldo situation. But I've got a little bit of a prediction here for you. He did take Belgium, didn't he, to the semi-final of the World Cup 2018, I think. He's failed with Portugal here, and I know you always think I turn back to Scotland here, but I think he could be the next Scotland manager.
That's a good idea.
Massive Scottish connection. His wife's Scottish. He's got a huge connection with the country, so there's my little tip for you.
That's a great idea. I mean, whether they could afford him, I wouldn't know, but that is a really good shout.
Right,
he's a great bloke. He's a great bloke, Roberto Martinez. I don't know whether he's underachieved with the two teams, he's had. He probably did underachieve with the Belgian team. I think Chris Sutton was singing the same tune at the last Euros, by the way, about Martinez and Ronaldo. And I was saying back then that he had to pick him, because if he didn't pick him, there'd be mutiny in his dressing room. I think this time it was slightly different because Martinez's contract is up. So I think this time, if I'd have been Martinez, I probably would have gone down swinging and think, well, if I'm going down, I'm going to go down with my principles intact, because they've carried Ronaldo for 2 or 3 years. Anyway, they're out. Other teams aren't. Argentina are through. Spain's interesting. I've not seen Spain live. People keep telling me how boring they are to watch, and it sounds like that Spain-Portugal game was dull. I was on the plane when that was
painful
when that was on, so I didn't see a minute of it.
I think the next place to take it after Portugal and Spain were dull. Portugal deserved to go out, I think. But, moving on to a different game, what I've found interesting, Ian, about this tournament is that there's football to talk about, there's refereeing to talk about, and there's been an unbelievable amount of off-field politics involved. A president getting into it, been controversy, racism, all sorts. And Mbappe, I mean, the post-Paraguay language has been despicable, really, and Mbappe responding to it. That, I don't really remember that level of controversy with a tournament like this before, where your top star is absolutely hammering, a Paraguayan official. And so there's a lot of stories happening here, front of the paper, back of the paper. There's a lot to talk about. But the France game in particular, there was some ugly, ugly stuff going on the pitch, which I'm sure Mark will come to in a second. But from a point of view of a journalist, there's been a lot for you guys to get your teeth into in the coverage.
Yeah, there has been. I'll be honest, as journalists, we always want stories, of course, but we would prefer stories to be about the football. I mean, we all love football to various degrees, so we don't want to be writing stories about racism and certainly don't want to be writing stories about players having red cards rescinded just because the President of the United States wants his centre forward to be back on the pitch. I mean, but that's where we're at. And I tell you what I find interesting and sad. I think FIFA have become such a abysmally run organisation with such an obvious lack of moral compass, such an obvious lack of care for their own tournament, that they have as a result of that, laying themselves open to all kinds of these accusations. So you have, I think you mentioned it before, Mark, Ronaldo shouldn't have played in the first game of the tournament, but FIFA wiped a red card from qualifying. Lionel Messi's team, Inter Miami, didn't qualify for the Club World Cup last summer, but FIFA wanted Messi there, so they shoehorned them into the tournament, gave them the opening game. We've now had the thing with the American player Balogun, which I've just referred to. And what that does is that opens the door to every single team that loses a game to scream corruption at FIFA.
Yeah.
And because they are, if not corrupt, they are a deeply flawed organisation, which means that you have a team like Egypt now suggesting that the game was fixed just because FIFA want Messi to stay in the tournament. I don't think it was, but I don't blame them for saying it, because FIFA have lowered themselves to that level before, and now everybody presumes they're doing it all the time.
Yeah, the door's been left open, hasn't it? And you wouldn't blame them for suggesting that after what's gone on. And again, Mark,
No.
talking about we'll come to the Egypt controversy in a second, but in the Paraguay-France games, some of the off-the-ball incidents and some of the violence, there were a lot of red cards that didn't land for me. What was it like, again, in the studio, watching some of that? I mean, there was one forearm smash that looked to me like, a 6-month jail sentence. When you think, John,
the one on Mbappe,
that's the one.
And
yeah.
there was other stuff. There was other stuff, and I think that was a sign of weak refereeing. Probably a bad appointment. No disrespect to Uzbekistan and the Uzbekistan referee. It needed a referee who was going to be strong in the key moments, knowing what South American teams are like. I've come across South American teams and I know what they're like. I've seen them kick penalty marks when there's a penalty being given. It's just the tactics they do. They think it's normal in the Copa America, but it's not accepted in the world of football. So,
To be fair, Mark, I've seen that in the Premier League. I've seen that in the league. To be fair,
yeah, but it's cynical. Yeah, but it's a laughing joke, isn't it? It's not it's not the dark arts. We haven't seen these dark arts for a long, long time, And I was probably involved in the last dark arts when Chelsea played Tottenham, when Chelsea stopped Tottenham in the title. So I know what it's like, and I felt that a referee lost control, and at some point during the second half, he felt he was out of his depth, and it didn't matter what he did, he was never going to do it. I felt it happens, and he learned from that mistake. Getting to that point where, Paraguay can't win any arguments in this one because Paraguay were horrible. And if you look at it as a game as a neutral, and you see 3 yellow cards to France and none to Paraguay, and no red card, that just sends a bonkers message to me that something's not right. Something is not right in football, that you can have a team like Paraguay didn't commit. And what you've got to be thankful for, that we're not losing the superstars, 8 bad challenges, injuries and suspensions. I know Elise is on a yellow card and potentially could miss. Listen, Elise hasn't had 4 yellow cards in the first 4 games, gets one. Why is he going to get a yellow card in the next 2 games to miss the next game? So I'm not keen on that at the moment, but it feels like the French players did extremely well not to be wound up on the field. You had the goalkeeper at the end of the game thrown the ball at Mbappe. Come on. This is just...
I think that one thing I do think, I'll make a very quick point. I've probably said it before. I think you're right about the referees, Mark. I think the refereeing standards have dipped as the tournament has gone on. What I will say, and I don't want to talk for 10 minutes about it, I do think that when we get to the latter stages of the World Cup, forget fairness, forget kind of involving everybody. Your mate, bloody, what's his face, Kalina, should just say, right, these are my best 4 referees in the world. I don't care who they are.
I'm here,
These are my best 4. These are my 4 best. Yes, that's right, Mark Clattenburg, get your kits on, not your black and white stripes, your actual football kit. These are my best 4 referees, and from quarterfinals onwards, you referee in the lot. You referee in the lot. You'll get a quarter-final each, 2 of you will get a semi-final, and one of you will get all 3. Because that's all that matters to me. It's the pinnacle of world football. You've got the best players who've been playing for 5 weeks to get to the final. Do not land them with inferior referees. It doesn't make sense.
Right, I'm going to come back to that point in a minute, Ian, because I don't want to address it now, because I want to address it while we'll talk about Egypt in a moment, and why it's important what I'm going to say to you. That just counteracts what you're saying.
So you usually prove me wrong. I don't mind you doing it again.
Just listen. You've got what you've got is you've just had Egypt complaining about the French referee, right? This French referee is one of the best in Europe. Refereed the last Euro final, so the guy's experienced. The guy's got the credentials and got the experience. What you can't do, and they're complaining, you can't put an Oceania referee because they're not good enough, right? You can't put an Africa referee because Egypt are from Africa. You can't put a South American in because of Argentina. You can't put a North American in because where you're going to put them from, Mexico or America. They're not...
Well, scrap those rules. Those rules are stupid.
But you can't... listen what you've just said. You've just got an Egyptian coach at the end of the game complaining that it shouldn't have been a French referee. Listen,
but he'd have complained about anything.
No, listen.
He'd have complained about anything.
This is the point. This is what they're going... Everybody's complaining. I remember doing a game in the same way. We don't want an Englishman. Like, for example, Argentina cannot have an English referee. Cannot, because of the Falklands War.
Because of the Falklands.
That's
it's just
politics.
nonsense. It's nonsense.
But this is the world that we have to live in. For example, when 2 European teams play, they'll approach both teams and say, "Are you happy with a European referee?" Because you know that they'll fight before the game. Lexia was one of the best referees in Europe, and they're still complaining about him. What else could FIFA do? Put a Spanish referee in, so then he could speak the same language as Argentina. It never works. All of this, it must be so difficult to appoint referees. Yeah, go on.
Can I ask you a question?
Mm-hmm.
You two were decent footballers. I wasn't. You've both played decent levels of football. Gordon, when he used to play at a decent level, did you have did you have any idea who the ref was before he turned up? Or you just get the bloke you were given?
No idea. Only for big games like semi-finals and cup finals, you'd maybe have an inkling of who.
Just get the ref that you're given.
But
The team's involved. It's nothing to do with them who referees the game. Here you go, boys. Here's your ref. Get on with it. What do you mean approaching nations and asking if they're happy with the ref?
So I've been involved in FIFA and UEFA as a referee, right? So you know that you're not going to referee certain teams. That's just the way the politics and the permutations work. Then you've got the issues. I've been head of refereeing in Greece and in Egypt, okay? And you know that clubs get upset with certain things. So what you're doing as your head, you're trying to limit the controversies. So, for example, I put Anthony Taylor as referee of Egypt against Switzerland. Okay, like you've said, because Anthony Taylor is one of the best referees in the tournament. That will never work. Because the moment he gives a decision against Argentina, the world caves in because of the Falklands War. Wrongly, but that's the way. But Ian, that's the way the politics runs. So you've got to limit the controversies.
Too much power.
And you want somebody neutral. You want somebody neutral to do the
all
best job.
All referees are neutral, Mark. That's the point.
They're not good enough.
Well, that's different.
You're going to get a neutral referee from New Zealand. That's not how it works.
Can we take a step back just for a second here, right? Because if you look at what has actually been said by the Egyptian manager, he said that Egypt were a better team, but football's unfair. They scored good goals. They had one disallowed. I would venture that actually Argentina, I think they edged it. That's football. Ian, were they better? Were Egypt a better team?
No.
You were
They had a plan and they executed it brilliantly. And ultimately... It came within 10 minutes of working, and then they were undone by a goal, and then a change of emotion, and then a genius by the best player in the world. And that's what happens. They're complaining because there were 2 fouls that they wanted in the 2 phases of play before the winning goal. One for a tug on a shirt at the far post, which was nothing, and second for a trip on Salah when from what I could see, the ball was played first. They didn't get the decisions. It came down to that. I mentioned my friend Ollie before, he was sitting next to me, Oliver Kay. I said, what do you think? He says, they're quarter penalties. In other words, tiny bit of a shout, but not enough. Yeah. And it comes down to it. And any talk of bias or we were the better team, they sat in, defended well, and they broke brilliantly. The goal that was disallowed when the lad went down the right, goodness me, what a goal. And the second goal they did score was something else as well. But that doesn't mean they deserve to win the game. No. The goalkeeper had a blinder, and they still lost.
Yeah. But if you're talking about fairness, then Ian, if you're talking about fairness, Argentina got all of the rubs of the green. They got all the 50-50s, because you've just said they were quarter penalties. Okay. The shirt pull and everything else. Go back to the disallowed goal of Egypt. That's where it all goes. It's not a foul. Come on. If you're going to give fouls... Listen, there's that many challenges have gone on 3/4 of the way up the field, that Argentina can defend. We saw a clear foul in the Norway-Brazil game before Brazil won the penalty. Nobody talks about it because it's Brazil. Okay? There's lots of challenges that have gone unpunished because the way the refereeing has been refereed in this World Cup. That was not consistent to the way the referees have been refereeing in this World Cup. If Egypt think there was fairness and they had a goal disallowed for an offence of that nature, they would expect one of them decisions in the penalty area, but you didn't get them. So what their argument is, if we want fairness, them 2 aren't giving us penalties, okay? Then the foul shouldn't have been given. Like I said to you about Croatia, England, with a penalty. So many people like Alan Shearer said that wasn't a penalty when Harry Kane kicks the bottom of the Mexican's foot. You might think it's soft, but it was nearly exactly the same as when Luka Modric hit Madueke inside the penalty area against Croatia. You can't have it both ways. And if you get consistency, people will accept it. But you don't accept inconsistencies.
Do you think there's big team bias then?
I think Argentina have had the rub of the green. I've said that today. Argentina
you said Brazil as well.
Have had rubs of the green. Because if you remember, Messi, if you're looking at Messi, that challenge by Messi was a poor challenge. Could have been a red card on another day in another World Cup. Right? There's one. There was a clear foul in the build-up that FIFA didn't show. Okay, in another game that they scored off and nobody discussed it. Okay? There is other things in this Egypt game that was unpunished. What I'm saying, Ian, Argentina, subconsciously or whatever, have had the rub of the green. It can happen in 1 game, it can happen in 2. But what happens with clubs that get obsessed, especially African clubs in nations? Because what they do, they've been playing in the African nations. You've seen what happened in the African nations last year. They know what goes on. Okay? So what they do, they've come into a game and thinking, you know what, we've just seen what we normally see. And that's why they're angry. Because they've seen things not fair in that game. And I think when I watched it as a referee, there was no balance. I'm not saying unfair, there was no balance.
Just to draw a line under this, Mark, and that's a really specific question for you. If you're refereeing under Kalina's rules, and we have seen a lot being sort of left alone, a lot of playing on, would you have given a penalty for Argentina today?
I would have refereed the game differently. I don't know if we would have given a penalty or not. What I'm saying is, you've got to. What I learned, and Kalina was a big supporter of mine, and he learned me a lot about balance. He understood about understanding the game, and I'm struggling in this World Cup. Referees understanding the game. They're allowing challenges to go, clear fouls in the middle of the field, which are then we've got a break on, and we've got a potential goal. That's more controversial than giving a foul in the midfield. Like what Kalina did with the law change. He brought a corner kick because he said he didn't want to give a corner kick when it was a clear goal kick because he could score off the corner. That's controversial. But what he's doing with the style of refereeing, because he's allowing so much physical contact, he's now missing clear fouls that are leading to goals. And then it's becoming such a massive controversy because it's a goal. If you just give the foul in the midfield, nobody complains. Nobody complains.
Gordon, I know you want to move it on, but I'm just going to say one thing. This is my 7th World Cup, and I'll tell you what, and I always say this, every World Cup, whether it's been a good one or indifferent or whatever, I always come home thankful for our Premier League referees, because the longer you stay at these tournaments, the more you realise that the standard of refereeing around the world, if this lot are the best, is not all that. And I am a supporter of Premier League referees, as Mark knows, on the whole. Sometimes it's hard to be, but I am on the whole. And I'm going to come home from this one thinking what I always think, which is our lot really aren't that bad.
Yeah, and I'll just put a quick point on that. Just a quick point on that in. I thought Qatar was excellent. I did. I thought the refereeing in Qatar was excellent. This one, because they've tried to assist the game. That's just been the biggest motto from day one. They wanted to make sure that the games were played longer. They wanted more excitement, and they've allowed the games to flow. The risk is when you allow the games to flow as a referee, you lose control. We've seen it in so many games. Premier League referees don't do that. They don't care about the game. They referee to the letter of the law. They might get it wrong, they might get it right. But the risk is in this World Cup, they've tried to assist the beautiful game. And they have, in a way that we've been excited and we've watched some wonderful games. But we've got more inconsistencies and more controversial decisions. I agree with you to a point.
Before we get back to the World Cup mayhem, we thought we'd tell you we're in partnership with Wix Trade Pro and tradespeople. You'll want to listen in.
Indeed, because being a Wix Trade Pro member saves you money.
You can save 10% every time you shop in-store or online. There's no minimum spend, no hassle, just savings.
That's top drawer.
And Wix is standing side by side with the trade to help tackle the nation's tool theft epidemic by raising awareness and working alongside Deter Tech to mark over 260,000 tools for free in 2026.
Now, according to Wix research, tool theft is a national crisis. Findings show that 38% of UK tradespeople have had tools stolen, with the average value of goods totalling over £2,500 per individual, forcing the vast majority of tradespeople to replace from their own savings. This leaves many unable to work. 99% of stolen tools are never recovered.
That's why Wix are working alongside Deter Tech, whose forensic tool marking liquid Smart Water has proven to deter tool theft, to raise awareness and help combat the spread.
Exactly. So download the Wix Trade Pro app today to start saving and help Wix to stem the tide of tool theft. Hashtag Wix against tool theft. I found it really frustrating, to be honest, particularly recently, last few games. Big decisions I think have been wrong. However, let's move on, because there are some mouth-watering quarter-final games to look forward to. It's been brilliant so far, but some great games ahead. And look, you know, I know, Ian, that you love talking mainly about sport, but France-Morocco is such a big political football match, right? Whatever happens there, I mean, France will be on fire after the game. Like, you know, if you live anywhere on the French Riviera, Marseille, anywhere on the south coast, that is pretty much a Moroccan constituency. Paris, yeah. That game on Thursday night is going to be absolutely exceptional.
Paris is probably the place to go and watch that, actually. You're absolutely right. Forget going to Boston and queuing up for 2 hours. Queuing up for 2 hours to get to that effing stadium in the middle of nowhere. Paris will be the place to watch it. But you're right, I was talking to another friend of mine who's off to that game, and I was thinking, wow, because that is a mega stadium at Boston once you get to it, as you know, Gordon. But yeah, I was thinking that, blimey. In terms of a football match, because they're a good side, Morocco, as we know, good side, and they won't sit there in some low block and try and hit France on the counter. They'll go there and put the put the mitts up and say, come on, let's go at it. And yeah, off the field, politically, culturally, that's a game that will be splitting families all over places like Paris. And yeah, I've already checked the kickoff time, and I can watch that on the telly, and I will be.
I mean, one thing I'm going to say about this, right? Suddenly losing to Morocco 1-0 is not a bad result, and I'm going to stick my neck out right now. Stick my neck out right now. I think Morocco are going to beat France. I think there's a bit of a turn in the road here. I know France have been great, right? I think this is a real test for them.
Yeah, I can see it. I hope it doesn't happen, because I'm just a snob and I like all the when I say big teams, all the kind of big nations to stay in. It's just the kid in me wants to see those matchups. But look, I saw Morocco play Brazil in the first game. As we know, they ran all over Brazil for the first 25 minutes. Could have scored one goal. Did score one goal. Could have scored 3 goals. Momentum interrupted by the hydration break. Drew the game 1-1. But I saw enough in that game. They didn't play quite as well against Scotland as I thought, especially after that electric start. And Scotland got at them in the last 10 minutes, as you will remember to your cost. Didn't quite manage to get a goal. 7 phantom penalties waved away by the referee, I seem to remember. Scots journalists running around the press box, jumping up and down, swearing, throwing imaginary bottles onto the pitch, etc. That seems a long time ago. But yeah, I can see where you're coming from with that. They'll give France a right game.
The only thing I'll say on the matter is, I think it would make Gordon feel better if Morocco got to the World Cup final. That way he only got beat 1-0 off the World Cup finalists or something like that. So
You can see the story.
The only thing that's going to make Gordon feel better is Norway 4, England 0. All right. So the only thing that's going to Gordon's got away with it once. All right. He's got away with it. The Scottish Premiership. All right. Yeah. You know. Hearts didn't quite manage to. I get mixed up. Hearts didn't quite manage to do it. So he saved him. He managed to take his head out of the noose for that one. But there's another big one coming up for you, Gordon.
Do you know what? I tell you, boys. A few years ago now, Hibs played Molde in Europe. Really early on. I think Ole Gunnar Solskjaer was manager of Molde at the time. Yeah. And there was a young lad up front called Erling Haaland who played for them that day, and he was up against Ryan Porteous, who you remember got sent off in the opening game of the Euros for a horrible tackle in the 6-yard box against Germany. And I remember thinking that day, that guy's ferocious, a physical thing. But we will go into detail.
Solskjaer claims, of course, that he when he was then manager of Manchester United, was it? Actually, no, I think it was before he was manager of Manchester United, but still had the best interests of the club at heart. He told them, this was before he went to Dortmund, you've got to sign this boy. And I tell you what, the Haaland thing's been good, because you hear a lot of people, it's one of those false narratives at home in the Premier League that Haaland's only a good player because he plays for Manchester City. Well, funny enough, he's a good player now playing for a World Cup underdog, so I think he's probably silenced that one, I think.
We will do a proper preview of the Norway-England game. But just one thing, I mean, I've been desperate to speak to Mark Clattenburg about this, because suddenly cometh the hour, cometh the Dan Burn. And this his moment to, do you start Dan Burn against Erling Haaland? Because I think I'm right in saying that his record against Manchester City is pretty good.
What, his left back? When he's played left backs, he's not marked Haaland.
Look, every dog has his day, and he's just barked,
exactly,
all right?
Yeah.
I think he's just barked.
I think you've hit the nail on the head loads of times. Sometimes
every dog has his
moment.
day, and he's just barked. Put him back in his kennel. Shut the door.
No, listen, there's no way, Jose, that's ever in anybody's thoughts. But you know what? Really? He had his day. And he did himself proud, and
he did.
People didn't realise why he was in the England squad. There was the reason, and he's had his moment, and that should be his moment, because you never know, Dan Burn could end up going the other side of the cliff.
And let me say, having said enough times on this podcast that he was only in the squad for the good vibes, and he was never getting on the pitch, and he was a waste of a place. Well, if England end up even getting to the semi-final or whatever, that 20 minutes that he contributed, along with John Stones, who also came on and was brilliant, that 20 minutes is worth his 6 weeks in America. So fair play, Dan Burn.
that's enough England for me today. Thank you very much. Because I think I've mentioned on the podcast before about how frustrated I am about the money I've wasted on Belgium in major championships in the last 16 years. I've bet on them so many times. I think it's going to come good. It's going to come good, and they've been shite, right? And here they are in a quarter final. Mark,
they weren't shite. Everybody was surprised by his team lineup. You know, Lukaku missing, De Bruyne missing. And you know what he did? He went, for the first time, for the first time, I saw a young Belgium team that were hungry. They were over. You know, forget the US. The US were really poor. They were nervous. After 5 minutes, I said to the producer, guys, these are going to get walloped because they couldn't put a pass together. They couldn't defend. They were nervous. They were their own downfall of, I think, 3 of the 4 goals. It was just a mess, a complete mess of a night. It certainly wasn't helped by the hype. You know, people realise your level that you're at. You can make a mistake in a game and you hope that you don't get punished. You can't make 3 mistakes against one of the top 10. I think the 9th in the world, isn't it, Belgium? In the top 10, you can't make them mistakes. And you know what? Belgium, people talk about dark horses with Norway, and they deserve the place. You know, Belgium have come through. Yeah, they were 2-0 down against Senegal and come back. And they only played an American side that you would expect to beat. But the way they beat them and the way they went about their business, I was quite impressed with Belgium, with that young-looking side that were quite dynamic.
I was really surprised because I thought the USA would beat Belgium.
Me too.
I thought they were on a bit of a wave. Yeah. It's a shame now. Well, the 3 hosts have all gone out in quick succession: Canada, America, and Mexico, which is a shame, a real shame. I watched my football when in Atlanta at the moment. There's a little bar around the corner. Atlanta, as I've said before, is baking hot. It's best in the evening. It's lovely in the evening, lovely and warm. There's a little bar around the corner, kind of an in-out bar where you can sit inside, but you can also sit at the bar sitting outside, if you get what I mean. And they show the football. They don't have the sound, but they show the football. And I don't know if it's a good sign or a bad sign, but obviously I was away to Mexico over the weekend, got back yesterday. Quite glad to get back. Got back late. Plane was delayed. I thought, I'll just get the second half of the America game. Whizzed around there, sat down at the bar. Barman put the same can out the fridge that I've been drinking for last week. So what I'm saying is he knows what this strange pale English bloke likes to drink. He's been there so often. So he put my little can of pale ale, 7.5% by the way, on the counter. And I watched the America game without the sound, so I couldn't hear Mark, but I was messaging him. So I couldn't tell what the atmosphere was like in that amazing stadium in Seattle. I've been to that stadium on a pre-season with Man United. It's absolutely fabulous, but I couldn't tell what the atmosphere was like.
Flat.
But it seemed to me that the crowd was still behind the team. They were awful. Tim Ream won't sleep for a year, I wouldn't imagine. The goalkeeper. But what really struck me, Gordon, was I've got a huge regard for Mauricio Pochettino as a person and as a manager. I thought his performance yesterday was worse than any of his players. Every time the camera cut to him, which was often, he was just sitting on the bench. I never saw him in the technical area. I never saw him on the touchline. Yeah, I saw him booting water bottles when they conceded a goal and slamming the top of the dugout when they conceded another goal. I didn't feel his impact on the game. We're not here to talk about England, but Thomas Tuchel had an impact on that game in Mexico. You said before, Gordon, you don't think Steve Clarke had enough of an impact on the games that went badly for Scotland. Tuchel had an impact. Pochettino, for a world-class manager who's been paid a king's ransom to lead America to its own World Cup, and who's done a brilliant job thus far, got them through the first knockout range. I don't think he earned his money last night. I mean, unless he's telepathic and he doesn't need to say anything to his players. When you're struggling, inexperienced World Cup nation, you need to look to the touchline and see your manager leading. And I didn't see that at all. I was really disappointed.
Yeah. That's done for a lot of managers in the past, by the way, at international level, if you can't change in-game. And Kevin Keegan's a great example of that, wasn't he? He really struggled to change things up once the game was started. Right, let's do this quickly before we end the podcast. France-Morocco, who's winning in?
France.
Mark?
Extra time.
France.
Right, I'm going to go Morocco. Spain-Belgium, who's winning, Mark?
Spain.
Ian?
Spain.
I'm going to go Belgium. Let's leave that one to last. Argentina, Switzerland. Ian?
Switzerland.
Oof.
I don't know why. I just wonder if Argentina's luck might run out.
Run at luck.
I think the only way Switzerland can win if the longer the game goes on. I don't think them winning 90 minutes. I don't think they'll do much damage. I just think Argentina might just get the noses in front. Get the noses in front. It's game over.
Yeah, I'm going to say Argentina as well. And Norway, England. Mark Clattenburg.
It's only one. England.
Dan Byrne. Ian?
England extra time.
Excellent stuff.
I think, you know what? Oh, sorry, Gordon, your answer.
Norway.
Yeah, we'll talk about that anyway. We'll do another pod before that to go deep into it.
Let me just put my Viking helmet on.
You know what? They've got the best. They've got the best. That I love. Watching Norway after the game, and they do the old. It's
drum.
unbelievable.
Oh, yeah.
I've watched bars. There's a bar in my local in La Cala in Spain, and it's full of Norwegians, and you're just seeing them doing it. It's absolutely brilliant. Brilliant.
It's absolutely brilliant.
Yeah,
boys, it's brilliant. What a great
Tell you
World
what,
Cup.
the fans, the fans at this World Cup have been great. The Egyptian fans were great today. Everyone talks about the great Argentina following. The Egyptian fans were terrific.
Absolutely brilliant. And boys, really enjoying speaking to you and enjoying your insights on the World Cup so far, and plenty more to come. Ian, where do you go next?
I've got a couple of days here now. So I've got a couple of things to write. I need to do some laundry. You don't need to know the details of that.
No.
And then I'm going to go to Miami for England's quarter-final against Norway.
Excellent. And Mark, still in Los Angeles. How much timber have you put on? How much terry weight have you added?
I'm actually none. I'm actually looking after myself. I'm actually getting myself into trim because I've got my gladiators outfit to put on in the next couple of weeks for the next series.
And you got your family over, Mark, you say?
Yeah, they've just come over yesterday, so they were jet lagged all day. So yeah, it's going to be nice.
I'll tell you what.
Now that the tournament's getting less and less, there's some more down days, so it's going to be nice.
I tell you what, Mark, I do envy you. Don't need to get all emotional about it, but I do miss my little girl, so I do envy you. I do envy you having the family over. That's lovely. I hope you have a good couple of days.
It was. I was envy for about 2 hours this morning till I took her shopping, and it was a nightmare. So I don't envy myself.
Well, boys, I can make you feel better. I'm in London tonight. It's about 30 degrees, and it's about 1 o'clock in the morning. So, yeah,
it's 30 or 13.
33. I can't explain to you how hot it is in London at the moment. It's ridiculous.
I better turn
So it's a sticky night that lies ahead. And one last thing to finish the podcast, just in case it's our only moment of glory over the last year, we have been longlisted for the British Podcast Awards, which is kind of every sports podcast in the country. But, with a little bit of luck, the three of us can go in the sky and celebrate being nominated at some point in the next few months. So there we are.
I think what we should say about that is that people in journalism say awards don't matter until you win them, and then they really matter. Not that I would know, never having won one. But let's just say we have been longlisted, and we ought to put a shout out to our producer Will, who never ever gets a mention on this podcast. The previous producer Henry used to be all over it. Will's a little bit more backseat driver, but well done, Will.
Well done, Will.
That reflects on you probably much more than it does on us three Muppets.
Exactly. Certainly does. He provides all the shots of glory for us, and he's a brilliant man. Right, boys, well done, Will. I'll catch up with you again soon. Mark, could you do the honours, please? Thank you very much for watching Whistleblowers. Remember, there are new episodes every Thursday and Tuesday, so don't forget to subscribe to our YouTube channel for even more content, and follow us wherever you get your podcasts so you never miss an episode.